Hey guys, it's Libby. It's been a while. At this rate, I'm going to finish the book series before I finish the video series. But we are talking about today the books I would recommend starting with in the Discworld series. And yes, there is roofing going on outside of my house. It has been going on for weeks. I'm trying to film around it, but sometimes I just can't because it's constant. Trust me, it's driving me more insane than it's driving you. So in the description you will find a link to LSpace, which is a website which has a nice graphic of the sort of breakdown of the series and reading order and the sort of subtle links between the series. But honestly, I just want to say, with the exception of the light fantastic, you can really start with any Discworld novel. Each of them is a whole story contained within itself, and while you may not appreciate all of the nuances of the character and some inside jokes, you will still understand what's happening in the story. You won't be confused, you will enjoy it. That said, I am going to show you the easiest books to jump into this series with. I've divided them into three categories. The first one is proper standalones. The next one is books that start out a new sub-series, and then the last one is books that are in the middle of a sub-series, but I think you don't need to have read the earlier books in order to appreciate them. So the first standalone we have is The Amazing Morris and His Educated Rodents. This is a retelling of the Pied Piper story, and it's set in the Ramtops region, which you'll be familiar with if you've read the Witches series, but again, you don't need to have read the Witches series to understand this. It's got totally separate main characters. Actually, a lot of my friends who have read this say this doesn't actually seem like a Discworld novel. It is quite different and doesn't really have any of the tie-ins, except I think Death might show up in it. Death is known for appearing in every single one of the Discworld novels, so I'm pretty sure he's got to be in this one, but I don't remember. Then we have Pyramids. You'll often see this book put together with Small Gods in like an Ancient Cultures sub-series, but they are totally separate. Pyramids is about ancient Egypt. Small Gods is about like prophets and religion, and I haven't read it, so that's all I got for you. Then we have Moving Pictures, which is about the invention of film in Discworld. Discworld's timeline is a little bit off from ours. They invent film and the gun at about the same time. Then we have The Truth. This is about the beginning of the newspaper industry in Discworld. And finally, Monstrous Regiment. This is about the sort of Balkans area of Discworld, very small countries that have hated each other for a long time fighting. And this one is less of a complete standalone than the other ones I've mentioned. William DeWord, who is the main character of The Truth, shows up in this one, and so do some members of the Ankh-Morpork City Watch who have their own sub-series. But the main characters are all original to this book, so you shouldn't have a problem reading it. It's just if you really are like committed to this series and you want to get all the nuance, I would read this after you've read at least a couple of the City Watch books. On the other hand, this is also one that I think is really excellent, so this might be a good place to start. Then we have the books that start out the sub-series. Sub-series sort of follow one main character or a couple of characters through multiple books. And there is some weaving in of characters from other sub-series, and some characters don't actually have their own sub-series, like Lord Vetinari, but they still show up as supporting characters in plenty of other books. So the first book is the first book that was ever published. That's The Color of Magic. This starts off the Rincewind sub-series, and you should know that this book and the light fantastic really do go together. This is the only time where you have a direct sequel, and these two make up one story. So really treat these two like one book. We also have Equal Rights, which is the first book of the Witches sub-series. We Free Men, which is the first book of the Tiffany Aching sub-series. This is a YA book. Oh, I forgot to mention that The Amazing Morris and His Educated Rodents are also YA books. The other ones are adult in that they sometimes have sex jokes, pretty much. Or like satires of economics, which might not be so interesting for the kids. But yeah, We Free Men, first book in the Tiffany Aching sub-series. This is sort of a spin-off series from the Witches sub-series. Granny Weatherwax, who's a main character in the Witches sub-series, is a pretty key supporting character in this, but it was written for a new audience, so Terry Pratchett gives you all of the information that you need in order to understand this. Then there is Mort, which is the first, which has something on it, and is the first book of the Death sub-series. And also Going Postal, the first book of the Moist von Lipwig sub-series. If you go to L-Space, you might see this series called The Industrial Revolution, which has a bunch of the standalones I had mentioned, like The Truth in Moving Pictures. When this book was first published, it was fairly well into the Discworld writing years. This is like book number 32 or something like that. So like everyone kind of thought that this might be a standalone, so it was lumped in with the Industrial Revolution sub-series, which has very tenuous, I mean, it just has thematic links, it doesn't have any plot links. But it is actually the start of a new series. So the Moist von Lipwig series is kind of contained within the Industrial Revolution sub-series thematically, but all of the characters are separate. And then we have Guards, the first book of the Ankh-Morpork City Watch sub-series. This is the only book about the City Watch that I have read, and I thought it was fine, but a lot of people say that the City Watch books are their favorite. So you might also want to start with this one, knowing that you will have to push through it in order to get to the golden stuff that you can find in, say, Men-at-Arms. And then finally, there are two books that most people will tell you are in the middle of a series or even at the end, but the characters are separate enough that I don't think it will be a problem for you to start out with them. The first book is Weird Sisters. It's spelled with a Y, just so you know. This is the second book in the Witches sub-series. It's a Macbeth parody adaptation. I'm reading it right now, hence bookmark, so you'll hear a bit more about it quite soon. But the first book in the Witches sub-series, Equal Rights, I didn't really like, and a lot of people don't really like, so I think it'd be fine to just give that one a miss. The main character, Escarina, of Equal Rights does not appear in this book or in fact in any other books, and Granny Weatherwax is a main character in Equal Rights, and she's in this one, but you get reintroduced to her, and there's plenty of other new characters, so go ahead and start with Weird Sisters and read Equal Rights later if you are a completionist, but you don't have to read Equal Rights, is my recommendation. And finally, last book that I have decided is a good starting place for the Discworld series is Unseen Academicals. This is the last book in the Rincewind sub-series. However, the Rincewind sub-series really changes as you progress. It starts, they have, I think, like the most time between books. That series has been going on for the longest. Color of Magic was published in 1983, and this one is like 2012 or something. Okay, 2009. So yeah, this series has gone through a lot of changes. It really started off focused on Rincewind, and then Rincewind became like a gradually less and less important character, and by the time you get to Unseen Academicals, he's really just a cameo. Like, you will miss out on 2 sentences worth of jokes if you do not know who Rincewind is, and this is a over 400-page book, so embrace your lack of understanding of those 2 sentences. This book does have quite a lot of characters. One set of them are sort of working class folk, and then there are the faculty members of the Unseen University who, this set of faculty members was introduced in, I think, which one was it? Interesting Times, I'm pretty sure. And they've been getting gradually more important. So, like, you don't need to have read Interesting Times because they're not that key to that book, and you're not going to learn that much about Mustrum Cully and the Dean and the Bursar. You never really learned much about the Bursar, actually. And then, oh my god, the drills. The drills, guys. The drills. I apologize. Now they're doing the thing where it sounds like they're torturing a puppy. The squealing. Can you hear the squealing? But Terry Pratchett will give you everything you need to know about them in order to understand this book. So there you have it. I have given you 15 starting places, which should be plenty for you to find something that you like and something that you can, say, find at a used bookstore or on Book Outlet on the cheap. Actually, I haven't seen a lot of Terry Pratchett Discworld books on Book Outlet, depressingly. But I wish you luck on your Discworld explorations, and I will be coming to you soon with a sort of review and synopsis and snapshot of the Rincewind sub-series and then the other sub-series. And of course, if you have any questions or additional topics you'd like me to cover in this video series, please let me know in the comments. I will be happy to oblige.